Everything you think you know about Vikings is probably wrong. Forget filthy barbarians with horned helmets. These Norse were obsessed with cleanliness, bathed every Saturday, and traveled with grooming kits like ear spoons, tweezers, and combs, outshining even the Anglo-Saxons for hygiene. The evidence does not just rewrite the tale, it flips it completely. So why does nearly everyone still picture the Vikings as muddy marauders? The truth is much stranger and far more colorful than the myth. Saturday wasn't just another day for the Vikings. It was reserved for Laugardaga, which means washing day. While much of Europe treated a bath like something to fear or avoid, Scandinavians lined up for their weekly soak. Hot springs bubbled across Iceland, and even in towns like Birka or Hedeby, wooden tubs and steamy saunas became the heart of social life. Archaeologists have uncovered more than 3,000 combs from Viking Age sites, carved from antler, bone, and sometimes even imported ivory, far more than swords or axes. These combs were not just for show. The teeth are worn smooth from daily use, and many combs came with leather cases ready to hang from a belt. Tweezers, ear spoons, and even toothpicks turn up in graves of men and women alike, tucked beside their owners as if no self-respecting Viking would face the afterlife with unkempt hair or dirty ears. The tools themselves tell a story. At Birka, female graves often contain entire grooming kits, combs, ear cleaners, and tweezers bundled together. At Hedeby, dig teams in the 1930s found similar sets, some stashed in wooden boxes, others loose among beads and brooches. Even the Oseberg ship burial, dating to around 834 CE, included a small, finely carved comb nestled among the grave goods. These artifacts are so common that one historian quipped that combs outnumbered swords. It wasn't just about vanity. Contemporary English chroniclers such as John of Wallingford grumbled that Vikings bathed and combed so often they became irresistible to local women, a hygiene advantage that apparently doubled as a dating strategy. The Anglo-Saxons, by contrast, stuck to the occasional wash and mostly left their combs at home. Not everyone admired these habits. Ahmad ibn Fadlan, a 10th century Arab diplomat, encountered the Volga Rus, Viking traders along the river, and was both fascinated and horrified. He described men waking, washing their faces and hair, and then passing around a communal basin for spitting, nose-blowing, and a good rinse. To Fadlan, this was both excessive and frankly disgusting, but he could not deny their commitment to daily grooming. His account, written in 921, still stands as one of the most vivid outsider snapshots of Viking hygiene. All this evidence, thousands of combs, tweezers, ear spoons, and the testimony of surprised foreigners, paints a picture that is hard to ignore. Far from filthy marauders, the Vikings were the clean freaks of medieval Europe. For them, looking sharp was not just a luxury, it was a way of life. If you picture Vikings as a parade of muddy, leather-clad brawlers, brace yourself for a splash of color. Archaeologists digging through the layers of Jorvik, Viking York, pulled up scraps of wool dyed in shades that would make a modern fashionista jealous. Blues from woad plants, reds from madder root, and the occasional shot of imported silk or scarlet insect dye turned tunics and cloaks into walking billboards for status and taste. In fact, a 1985 lab test on a textile fragment from Coppergate revealed enough woad residue to confirm that blue was not just for the elite. Ordinary folks could get in on the action too, and the richer you were, the brighter your wardrobe. It was not all about the clothes. Foreign traders like Ibn Fadlan described Viking men with what he called dark eyelashes, possibly from oil or even coal, the same eye makeup favored by their neighbors to the south. While there is no direct archaeological proof of coal sticks in Scandinavian graves, the rumor has stuck. What is certain is that grooming mattered. and a little flare around the eyes would not have been out of place among the Rus Vikings Ibn Fadlan met on the Volga. Whether it was true eyeliner or just a healthy application of beard oil, the effect was striking enough to get noticed. But if you are waiting for the famous horned helmet to make an entrance, do not hold your breath. The only real Viking helmet ever found, the Geirmundbu helmet from 10th century Norway, sports a simple iron dome and a nose guard. No horns, no wings, just practical engineering. The horned look actually comes from 19th century opera. Carl Emil Doppler designed the costumes for Wagner's Ring Cycle in 1876, and those oversized horns were meant to scream barbarian to the cheap seats. The myth stuck thanks to pop culture and a few too many Halloween costumes, but not a single archaeological dig has turned up a helmet with horns. So next time you see a Viking in horns, remember you are looking at a bit of theatrical fantasy, not history. In the real world, Viking style was all about color, clever tailoring, and making an impression on neighbors, rivals, and the occasional wide-eyed foreign diplomat. Their love of bright dyes and sharp accessories says more about who they were than any battle axe ever could. Step inside a Viking longhouse and the first thing that hits you isn't the decor, it's the smoke. These timber halls stretched up to 30 meters long, built low and sturdy to keep out the wind. There was no chimney in sight. Instead, a central hearth burned day and night, sending smoke curling through the rafters, escaping only through small vents in the roof. Over time, soot stained the beams black, and the air inside carried the scent of wood, stew, and livestock. The floor was more than just dirt. Digging beneath the remains at places like Lonzo Meadows, archaeologists found thick layers of ash and dung stacked like a layer cake. That's because cows, sheep, and goats bunked at one end of the house, separated from the family by little more than a wooden partition. On frigid nights, animal breath helped keep the living space warm, and their manure was collected for fertilizer. It also meant dodging the occasional cow pat on the way to bed. Life in the longhouse was a group affair. 10, 20, sometimes 30 people, parents, kids, grandparents, even a few thralls shared the same smoky space. Oil lamps flickered along the walls, and the central fire doubled as a kitchen, with pots of barley porridge or fish stew simmering over the flames. In winter, the only light came from that fire, and the only heat from bodies and beasts together. Living like this wasn't glamorous, but it worked. The longhouse kept families fed, animals alive, and everyone just warm enough to survive another Scandinavian winter. If you ever thought Vikings lived wild and free under the stars, think again. Most nights they fell asleep to the sound of sheep snoring on the other side of the wall. Iron keys, tangled on simple rings, turn up in the graves of Viking women from Hedeby to Birka. These were not just trinkets. They were a badge of authority. Keys often lie at the waist, right where they would hang in life, and archaeologists find them in about 1 in 5 female graves. The law codes back this up. Gragas, Iceland's medieval law book, spells out a woman's right to manage property, oversee the farm, and even initiate divorce if her husband was violent or unfaithful. She could keep her dowry and anything she brought into the marriage. Law protections like that made a real difference. That is a far cry from contemporaries in Frankish and Anglo-Saxon lands, where women's rights barely made it out of the churchyard. In the Viking world, women ran businesses, handled disputes, and kept households afloat while men were away raiding or trading. Saga writers did not just invent powerful women for drama. Take Orda the Deep-Minded, a real 9th century matriarch. After her husband died, Orda took charge of his estate, freed her slaves, and sailed across the North Atlantic to Iceland, where she claimed land for her family. According to the Landnámabók, She handed out farms to her kin and kept the best spot for herself, keys in hand. Order's story reads like a blueprint for female authority. Keys in graves, rights in law, and sagas full of sharp-tongued, land-owning women. The evidence stacks up. In the Viking Age, a woman could run the farm, keep the house, and if needed, lock the door behind her. Every myth we update shapes how we see ourselves today. As new discoveries challenge old legends, the real Viking story reminds us that facts outlast fables, and that even the fiercest reputations are built on ordinary lives. History's details matter more than the helmets. What surprised you most?